on this team install number 1, I want to go over 4 things, 4 important areas that I want, as a coach, I think is important for our team and our players to understand and comprehend and understand that these are 4 important factors that we as a team and as individuals should deem as important for our team success. So number 1 would be versatility and adaptability. As a coach, I want versatile and adaptable players. Players that can be, whether it be offensively and defensively, involved in the run or pass. Can play inside, outside, they can block and catch. What this allows you to do then as a coach is to give multiple looks with the same personnel. It allows teams to be adaptable to any and in any situation. And it allows these players then to maximize strengths also on special teams. If you look at on the current trend on successful teams, both offensively and defensively, it is to have these key positions to be as versatile and adaptable as possible. Positions like tight end, positions like a fullback, positions like a Z receiver, where they can, with that same personnel groupings, can give a look where it's almost two back or a heavy run personnel or formation, but then the next play have that same personnel but be spread out into doubles into like a 4 wide receiver set. So if you look at teams like the 49ers with George Kittle, they're able to do these things, and they're in the strength of their fullbacks. They're able to have George Kittle be a very viable run versus pass threat, which creates mismatches throughout the game because of this adaptability and versatility that this athletes possess. And this goes on both sides of the ball. If you look at the NFL now and just college football, the versatility of players is what is mightily important. Christian McCaffrey could be seen as just as much a receiver as he is a running back. Versatility is key. Also on the defensive side of the ball, where now teams are going smaller and smaller, and linebackers now have to be able to cover tight ends, running backs, slot receivers in coverage just as much as they have to be able to fit into a run fit. And so what are teams looking for? They're looking for versatile athletes and players at these key positions. Defensively, we're talking about really the linebackers, safeties, and really all the defensive linemen. If you look at who are the all-pro or all-conference defensive ends / outside linebackers, they're hybrids between pass rushers, but who also can drop back into coverage. Think Khalil Mack, think about the Bosa brothers, think about those type of players that are able to do both those things. One of the top picks, the top defensive pick in this year's draft, from Clemson, Simmons here, who moved around from safety to outside backer to he could play inside backer to sometimes corner, depending on who was split out as receiver. Versatility, adaptability is what all teams want now, right? So you can play in 12 personnel or 21 personnel and give multiple type looks. And defensively, you don't have to adjust. You may not have to have a nickel or dime package. You could have your base package and be able to cover all the various situations or all the various personnel packages that an offense can come out with. Number 2 is explosive plays. Explosive plays, and we'll go on both sides of the ball here, are mightily important for both sides of the ball and for our players to understand the importance of it. And explosive plays are typically classified as 2 ways. It's either a 20-yard pass and a 15-yard run, or basically a 15-yard play is, depending on the offense or depending on the system that you're in, are considered explosive plays. So on drives that have 2 or more explosive plays, the percentage for scoring a touchdown is roughly 85%. With one explosive play, it's about 50% of the time. With no explosive plays, teams are only scoring touchdowns in the NCAA about 5 to 10% of the time. Teams that win the big play battle, the explosive play battle, win 75% of the games. Explosive plays are extremely important for our athletes and our players to understand that this is something that we should strive for, and this is something that we're not only going to scheme for, but when a ball's in a player's hands, we want explosive players, and we want them to seek and search for explosive plays. And that's something that I think, when we're getting athletes to now understand the importance of this, understand, hey, if I get an explosive play in a drive, now we're more likely to score a touchdown. If I get 2 explosive plays in a drive, now our likelihood of scoring a touchdown is almost 85 to 90%. We're going to score a touchdown. So now we're having athletes now understand that, hey, maybe I can break this 10-yard to a 20-yard gain and make this explosive play. So it's an important metric for our athletes to understand why it's important, and then for us to practice not only schematically but also hopefully get our players to be more creative and adaptable in space to make guys miss, to break tackles, to hopefully get those explosive plays. And this goes on to the other side of the ball as well. And a negative play could be seen as an explosive play for a defense. Okay, opponents score roughly a touchdown on 15% of possessions that have a negative play. So if we get a tackle for loss or a sack, only 15% of the time that if a defense has that, does the offense score. Now, if a defense does not come up with a negative play, that jumps up to 35% in a drive. Opponents only score a touchdown 9% of the time, under 10% of the time, if we can get a sack. So what does this mean? The narrative for our defensive players should be to have an offensive mindset, an attacking mindset. We need to play on their side of the line of scrimmage. We need to be explosive, and we need to attack. We can't sit back. We have to attack. And what this comes back to is a book by Sun Tzu, The Art of War. You have to attack. You can attack with speed, you attack with deception, attack with misdirection. And at the end of the day, you can't sit back and wait. You can't sit back and absorb. You have to attack. Offensively, every possession is precious. You have to think about a punt as a turnover. A punt is a turnover. We cannot give the ball back without points. That mindset is something that we need our offense to understand. A punt is a turnover. We are giving the ball back to the opposing team. That is a turnover. Defensively, like I said, we have to have an offensive mindset. Get the ball back. One thing I think that I've heard teams use, and I promote to coaches I consult with, is call them takeaways, not turnovers, because we are physically taking the ball away as a defense. Have that offensive mindset to attack, that you are playing defense in a sense is playing to get the ball back. You're playing for the ball. That is an offensive mindset. We're not playing to stop. We're not playing to absorb. We're not playing to slow down. We are playing to get the ball back. We're playing to take the ball away from the offense. If we force a punt, that is a takeaway. We took the ball away from the opponent. Have that mindset.
You go all the way back to a few hundred years BC. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Attack weaknesses, utilize strengths, and figure out what the strengths are in your team. There's some things you have to protect. Find the weaknesses of your opponent and attack. You can't win a war by digging a hole. You got to attack. So you have to figure out where you want to attack, how you want to attack, and that changes week to week, game to game. Well,
again, you have to attack. You have to find ways, whether it be through speed, misdirection, deception, but you have to attack a team's weaknesses and protect your own weaknesses and utilize your strength. Ask players to do things that they're good at. Avoid doing things that your players aren't good at, but you have to attack. And there's a kind of metric here we can use, and this is the 10% rule. As an offense, and this total becomes about 93%. 93 to 95% of the time, if you stay under 10% of an offense, you win the games 93 to 95% of the time. And that is this: your negative plays, your offensive penalties, and your turnovers. If those total plays are 10% or under, you're going to win 93 to 95% of the time. So you're talking about 80 total plays on offense. You have 3 negative plays, 4 penalties, 1 turnover. That's 8. 8 out of 80, 10% of your plays were these negative plays. We're trying to stay under that. Again, a metric for our athletes and our players to understand and think about and utilize, not only during practice but also during games, that this is an important metric, and this is why. From a defense, we want to have over 10%. So over 10%, we want to force negative plays, we want to force offensive penalties, and our turnovers minus our own penalties should be higher than 10%. Higher than 10%. So if we get in 6 negative plays, 5, we force the offense into 5 penalties, and we get 2 turnovers, but we had 3 penalties. 12% of our plays, 12 out of 80, were these positive, these explosive plays for our team. Another metric that, again, is a very strong indicator of winning a football game, and that's what it's all about. When we use metrics, when we use statistics, we need to use things that actually affect the scoreboard. And this is one that is obviously very effective at determining who wins and loses games. Number 3 is feedback from our athletes.
I hate this drill. Oh. Ah! I hate this drill. Oh. Nah, I hate this. I hate this. I hate that drill, boy, with a passion. That's why I play linebacker, so I won't get hit.
Oftentimes as coaches, we fear feedback. We fear an athlete saying they hate something. But for me as a coach, if this was my starting linebacker and the best player in my defense, which Darius Leonard is, I would take this feedback very seriously. Why would we be doing this drill that our athlete, one of our players, hates, especially our best player, hates before a game? So we're putting them into this negative mindset before a game even starts because we're doing a drill that I as a coach deem best, but my athletes or my players hate. I'm doing a disservice. So I'm always seeking feedback. I'm always saying, does this activity or this drill work? Do you think this is beneficial? Yes or no? If it's a no, you're not going to hurt my ego. You're not going to hurt my feelings. We want to make improvements. Instead, I think coaches, we get set on this. This is my drill, my activity, my idea. So it's an awesome idea. And if anybody disagrees, screw them. They're wrong. Rather, we should be more receptive and open to this feedback, especially from our players. So open to feedback, and I want feedback. I should seek feedback. We want to have our athletes give us feedback, and they should feel free and open and comfortable with saying things that aren't good. If one of my starting linebackers came back and said, "I hate this drill," why are we doing it? And I can't explain it, or they're not giving me the feedback that they see it's beneficial or transferring to the field, I'm going to change something up. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how you being a coach, being open and receptive to feedback from your players. So homework number 1 before we get to our fourth point is, as a player and coach, what are ways that you can be more versatile and adaptable? How can we better promote explosive play/players? Not only schematically or tactically, we can design up different plays, we can take shots and things like that, but are there ways that we can actually promote our athletes or our players to be more explosive and seek out more explosive plays? How can we be better at encourage athlete feedback? What can we do? How can we actively seek out feedback from our athletes and be receptive and open to that? And rather than, if an athlete does give feedback, we shoot it down, we downgrade that feedback, we kind of negatively talk to them, and we kind of kill that behavior of our athletes having this open line of communication with us. Homework number 1. Our fourth point, and this is a little bit longer bullet point, but our fourth point is that skill is a search process. Team success is not built upon memorization of plays or replication of these rehearsed movements that we're working on in Indy. Team success is built upon an athlete's improved search and pickup of information in the environment. In every game, certain opponents are key informational people pre-snap. Okay, and so this is something that I think we have to think about success as a unit, as a team, and also success from an individual standpoint is built upon a search process, a search through the environment for vital information to couple our actions and our movement, our behaviors around. Okay, pre-snap wise, which we'll get into in a second, every game, every opponent that we scout, there's going to be 1 to 2, maybe even 3 players that give away key information about the design of the play, the structure of the offense or defense, the movement of the offense or defense, and these are things that we should be actively searching and giving our athletes autonomy and ownership over this process. Oftentimes, it doesn't matter what we as coaches know from a scouting perspective, that we can have these key indicators and we know what the defense is going to rotate to, or we know what play is going to come next. What's more important is our athletes actually understand those things as well. So we should be promoting this search process with our athletes in addition to not only us as a scouting, from a coaching standpoint. I mean, just a team I scouted with last week, the center on the offense would always look and turn his head to which way he was going to block. And he had a very distinct stance on run plays versus pass plays. So I talked to some of my players about, hey, just cue the center. He's going to tell you which way he's going to have to down box. Now, do we actually know what the play is going to be? But no, that information is going to allow us to actually know that, hey, when he's going to turn his head to his right, they're going to work a combo with the 1 or the 3 technique up to that opposite backer. That information is important, very important for our players to understand and be aware of. In every game, there's players like that give away that information. How can we search and find those things? And we should encourage our athletes to find those things as well. So how do we do this? It starts with coming to the line of scrimmage. As we come to the line of scrimmage, we should be searching and scanning the environment. Pick up as much information as possible. Again, every week there'll be certain indicators. From an offensive standpoint, we should be looking at the middle of the field. Is it open or is it closed? That will dictate, the basis of the coverage. How many guys are on the LOS? What's the down and distance? What's the situation? What's the clock setting, etc.? All those things are really, really important for our athletes to understand. Again, I worked with a high school receiver the other week, and he was never not doing this. And on 3 plays, what he got surprised was he's looking back at the ball instead of scanning and searching the environment and using that auditory cue from the quarterback yelling out the snap count, or just taking snapshots of the ball and then back to the defense, ball back to the defense. Instead, he was just staring at the ball. And at 3 different occasions, he got surprised from a corner who started off at about 8 to 10 yards. But then as the cadence went on, he approached the line of scrimmage. And at the snap of the ball, he attacked the receiver. The receiver turned his head to go upfield and also was surprised that this corner was now jumping him rather than the last time he looked, he was 8 to 9 yards off the ball. So we have to continually search and scan the environment for information. So we'll go through position by position. These are just some easy things that each position should be doing. Again, quarterbacks looking at the middle of the field for middle of the field open versus middle of the field closed. We should then be scanning the corners, whether there's their leverage like, whether there's their demeanor like, where are their eyes at. We should be looking at apex players who are basically apexing, whether it be number 1 in the tackle, number 1 in the tight end, or number 2 in the tackle, 2 in the tight end. So the person apexing the furthest inside receiver and our last man in the line of scrimmage. Looking down center line, do they have a strength on what, center line is right down the center, about 8 yards off the ball, right down the middle. How many guys are on the right side of that center line? How many guys are on the left side of that center line? So we can determine strengths and weaknesses. You should be making sure all your receivers are on or off the line of scrimmage and they're appropriately, so we have a legal formation. Make sure everyone was set. We should be looking at the game clock, place clock, etc. So basic, a checklist quarterback should be going through. Wide receivers, same thing as the quarterbacks. Middle field open, middle field closed. We should be looking at the corner, the apex alignment, and the demeanor of these 2 players. Where are their eyes at? Where's their belt buckle pointed at? Where are their toes pointed at? That will tell you man versus zone principles. And this is that triangle. Corner, apex player, safety. That's kind of that triangle, which will give you away, the majority of the coverages that a team will run. Something that I talk a lot about with athletes, especially from a slot, is who do I have to beat? If I'm running a corner route from the slot and there's an apex player out in front of me that I know is going to try to reroute me, that's fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, it is the safety that I have to beat on the corner route in order to get open. So we have to know who we have to beat. Oftentimes it's not the guy lying up over the top of us, it's someone else. We have to know those layers, we have to know those levels of who we have to beat. And obviously down and distance. So if it's 3rd and 8, we're making sure that we're running, say, all hooks, or we're running some sort of intermediate route that we're getting enough yardage for the first down. And we're not, catching the ball short and going down, or if it's toward the sideline, I'm not catching the ball short and running out of bounds. I know what the down and distance is. I know where the sticks are, and I'm able to, exploit my route to get the necessary yardage. Basic things, but these things are not handled very well by high school, college, and even professional athletes from time to time. Running backs, what is the front? Where are the eyes of the linebacker? What's the safety alignment? Okay, if it's a pass play, who will I work to? Who am I going to help chip? Who? If the linebacker blitzes, who am I picking up? If it's a run, who do I need to, or who am I expecting to beat? Okay, who might go unblocked? Where might this pressure come from? So have those things in a plan in place. Also down and distance, so we know there's times 3rd and 2 where I might want to, just put my head down, get vertical, and get 3 yards. While if it's a 2nd and 3 or it's a 1st and 10, I may now have a little bit more ability or freedom to try to exploit space, be more patient, and pop a big play because I know there's another down coming. Offensive lineman, what's the front? Who's the mic? What's the defensive lineman over me? What's his alignment? What's his demeanor? What's the pressure on his hands? Again, same thing with the receiver. What's my triangle? What technique is the guy in front of me, outside of me, and my linebacker? This triangle. Same thing down and distance. What does the defense like to do in this down and distance? Where is a likely stunt or kind of a play coming from the defensive line and the linebackers? All those things should be going through my head. Tight end, very similar to a receiver and a running back. What's the front? Who's the Mike? What's the triangle looking like over top of me? During my route, who do I have to beat? And you'll see in all these down and distances on all these athletes. We move to the defense. A D-back, something I tell on D-backs is look at the demeanor, look at the eyes, look at the stance of your receiver. The receivers are notorious for, when it's a pass play, their stance, their demeanor, their pad level is a lot different than run plays. Pick up on those things. Where are the receiver's eyes? Are they searching inside? Are they looking at the safety? Maybe that's going to be an indicator that they're running something inside. Where are the quarterback's eyes? They keep looking to the right to try to get a picture of that right. Again, quarterbacks will give away pass versus run plays all the time. On pass plays, they'll search a lot more. Look left to right. They'll look at the safeties. During the cadence, they'll be looking at the secondary. While on the run play, they won't search as much. During the cadence, their eyes will be on the front or the linebackers. These are all things that players just, without knowing it, give away. We can look at things from a defensive back stance as well, especially if you're in the boundary. Look at the tackles, the right or left tackle stance, pressure on their hands. Are they in a pass set? Are they in a more of a run stance? Look at the pressure in their hands. Again, that will give you indications of what the play is likely to come. And can you pick up on those things throughout the game? Linebackers. Again, same thing with receivers and quarterbacks. Running backs give away where the play direction of the play, where they're going with their eyes all the time. Look at the offensive lineman alignment, split stance. Another thing almost all offensive linemen do this when they're pulling. When they usually set back in their stance or they're set back in their alignment, anywhere from 6 inches to a foot, all the time. This is an easy thing to pick up on. What is their alignment? What is their stance? Compared to the rest of the offensive line. If they're pulling, if they have to back block, they set back in their alignment all the time. Look at tight end fullback alignment. If they're off the line of scrimmage, oftentimes if a tight end is in a wing position or a fullback's in a wing position, they're going to block back. They're going to do a back block, or they're going to do something back to the other side to go to the flat for a play pass. Those are easy things that we should be looking for. Same thing, I talked about quarterback size. We should be listening for calls. For, what is the offense calling the strength to? As much as offensive teams try to, disguise, Louis versus Reggie, left versus right, they don't disguise it very well. You might as well just come out and say strong left versus strong right and trying to disguise it with a Louis or a Reggie or whatever it may be. But what are the calls for? Can you get a beat on the cadence? Again, many times the cadence is called at the line of scrimmage, like a Sunday means set, a Monday means on one, a kill means they're changing the play. Easy means they're gonna take a little bit longer. All these things are easy things. Can you pick up throughout the game? Listen for those calls. That same thing goes for defensive linemen. Listen for the cadence. Listen for the calls. What can you pick up to give yourself a great jump on the snap? Is it the ball? Maybe it's your guard or tackle. If you watch an NFL game, you watch a college game, oftentimes, it's the guard or a tackle is actually leaving right at the snap. Maybe you're better off, rather than looking at the ball, is finding an indication or indicator on the person in front of you, your guard or your tackle, that will give you a better ability to jump that snap than looking at the ball. Where's help coming from? Don't be surprised by a chip. Don't be surprised by a double team. Know that help is likely or might come from. So you can, again, know who to beat and how to beat them. And then from a coaching standpoint, I think coaches, we should be better at this as well. And this, from a practice standpoint, we should be standing on the sideline rather than behind the play, so we get a better perception and visual representation of what we're going to see on Saturdays or Sundays or Friday nights. What is down and distance, field position, hash, clock, timeouts, situational tendencies? Again, maybe you turn the ball over, and as a defensive coach, the opposing team, when they get a turnover, especially around midfield or 40 to 40, they're going to take an explosive play. Can you have some sort of call, or can you have a wristband that you can kind of give them a call, and they look in the wristband and know, hey, this is a high likelihood, this is a high tendency for them to take a shot. Hey, this is a high tendency for them to take a trick play. So be a little bit more cautious in this regard. Can we have those things? Same with 2nd and 1 is their situation. Same if you're backed up, or excuse me, you have the team backed up at the 1 yard line. What do most teams do? They're going to go on 2 or 3. They're going to go to a hard count to try to get a free 5 yards to move out from that, say the 1 yard line or 2 yard line. Can you give yourself wristband calls or just calls in general so your players are aware of those things? Are you watching the opposing team's coaches? Where are they? What are they looking at? What is their demeanor to the posture? Coaches, the same thing. We're human beings. They change their demeanor. They change where they're at. They change their posture if they're taking a trick play, if they're doing a fake punt, if they're doing a surprise onside kick, if they're going for it. All those type of things. Can we find personnel changes? Be prepared for changes in special teams or if defenses stays, etc. Things like that. Same thing, are you looking or finding those 1 or 2 indicator players in this game that you can allow your athletes to interact with? And then as a coach, we should be looking for ways that, from a rhythm, read, rush, and release standpoint. So rhythm is, what is there a primary play that or front or coverage or play offensively that I can use against a predicted look? I'm predicting that I'm going to get this look and this down and distance in this setting, and can I have a primary play against that? Now read, how can I adjust? How are you predicting the defense to adjust if you're being successful, or the offense to adjust if the defense is being successful? How might you predict the opposing team adjust? That allows you to have a game plan going into that rather than be surprised. If my offense that I installed or my game plan in this week is not working, as a defense, you should have that in your mindset. I'm stopping the offense. How might they adjust? Or vice versa. If I'm very successful from an offensive standpoint, how do I predict the defense will adjust to then change things to stop me? Now, rush. What am I going to do? When am I anticipating pressure? And what are my big plays to offset pressure? Same with defense. If I bring pressure, what is their go-to packages or plays against pressure? How can I use that to my advantage? And then releases. What are our big plays going to be? When are we going to use them? And vice versa. When are they going to use, their opponent going to use big plays? What are their big plays? And can we predict when they might use them? And this is a lot more coaches from a search and scan standpoint. There's a great video I'm going to show here next of how this can be very vital for you to use or to actually look at the opposing, not only team, but also the opposing sideline and find coaches and find their demeanor and find where they're at, because it will really help you make better decisions. This is a great video coming up here.
And I want to give you one other coaching point. And Coach Day might get upset with me here, but I would always know if the head coach was involved in special teams. For example, if the head coach is always in kickoff, then that I would always know. And I had a get-back coach always tell me where he's at. So if you're the coach at Michigan State, you're the coach I'm playing against you, and I see him, look at Coach Day. He's right here. Right. And I would be over here staring right at him, or I have someone always watch, tell me where that head coach is at. If he's normally not involved in kickoff and I see him there, I'm calling timeout. Or I'm giving some signal saying, wait a minute, why is he there? I've done that many times.
Now the Whitman has to think about taking a timeout.
When he got down there, I thought about the timeout. I knew they only had one timeout left. And when I looked over there, I don't know, something just didn't look right. They started on, they started off, and now,
Hey, you're out.
however many seconds had gone by, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm not going to take them off the hook here by taking the timeout. If they want to use it, let them use it. And Matt said, do you want the timeout?
What are we going to do? Do you want to call the timeout? It was a very lonely moment for me because he wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't even look at me. He was just kind of staring across the field.
Bill, they're wondering about a timeout. He said, yeah, I got it.
I said, no, just play goal line.
I mean, how incredible is that video? Just showing that how important it is for coaches to have a search and scan, a process or mindset going into it. Rather than just watching the field, watch the opposing sideline. And that arguably could have won them the Super Bowl. The fact that he didn't bail out Seattle with a timeout because he was looking at their sideline. He saw that they were under chaos. They were not under control. And why bail them out? And that chaos and that anxiety and that pressure to get a play in might have led to them making a poor decision, poor play call that, the Patriots kind of forced them into by not bailing them out with a timeout. So homework number 2 and last one here is, how can you better facilitate your athlete's search process? how can you become better at your own search process as a coach? Maybe during practice and also games. Whether you're a sport coach or not, maybe you're a strength coach or performance coach on the sideline, how can you assist your team and how can you assist them with your search process? Are there things that you can do? Can you talk to your head coach, your position coaches, or your coordinators and find things that you can do to help facilitate your team success? So that's team install number 1. We'll be back with you guys next week.